Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Robbie, the Precision Rifle Sniper, and if you like shooting content or a gun or just a gun enthusiast, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Today we're out here on the range testing my pistol accuracy. So at the Mammoth Sniper Challenge, one of the stages was to shoot your pistol out to 100 yards. Needless to say, I only hit the target one time. So that brought me to this point. A few videos back, I took this pistol out to the range with the ammunition that I had at the Mammoth Sniper Challenge and shot it at the 100 yards. And we barely hit a 30-inch target at that distance. So today, I've got my pistol out here on the range and I'm testing multiple different ammunitions to see which one is the most accurate. But the pistol that we're using started out as a 47 MOS, but I have installed the 19X lower. We also have the HoloSun SCS, with the green dot, which I have turned down to just the dot, solo dot by itself. Out front, we're running the MDT SkyPod, and we're going to be running off an MDT Peanut. Each ammunition is going to be shot over a chronograph. We're going to start out on a 50-yard target, because if we can't hit 50 yards, we don't need to be shooting the ammo anyway. We're going to fire 10 rounds, and we're going to take the best of the 10 and push them out to 100 yards. Let's just go over the different kinds of ammo we're going to be shooting today. We're starting off with some 115 9mm target and practice by Winchester, some Monarch 124 grain 9mm, some Blazer ammunition CCI 124 9mm, some Federal target and practice 115 9mm, some 115 Blazer CCI. Down at the end, this is our 147s. This is what I predict will be the best groups. But starting off, we have some Super Suppressor 147 by Winchester, some Federal American Eagle 147, and some UMC Remington 147. So let's set up on the range and let's see how this stuff does. So first up for my pistol accuracy test is going to be the Winchester 115 grains. I feel like those are going to be the worst group, so we're going to shoot him first. So we're starting off at 50 yards. I have 10 rounds loaded up. So let's see what happens. I'm going to speed the shooting up so you guys don't have to sit here and watch me, but I'll try to mark them on the target as I shoot. And we're just going to knock these out so it's not a 2-hour-long video. All right, so that's it for the Winchester 115. I ended up having to move the chronograph. It wasn't picking up. I had it down below. I'm gonna check the target on the camera. We're gonna move to the next target and continue our testing. So next up, I have the CCI Blazer 115 grain. So that was a little bit slower than the Winchester. That one was running a 1071. I'm gonna go ahead and move the camera and let's continue testing. All right, so up next is the Federal 115 grain target and practice. If you haven't got the trend yet, I started with what I believe to be the worst and I'm moving to the best. So let's see if my prediction is correct. All right, so the Federal did pick up a little bit more speed, running 1130. We'll go ahead and set up 3 new targets and continue with our testing. All right, so we're moving up the bullet weight a little bit. So next up is going to be the Blazer 124 grain CCI. Next, we have our second 124 grain contender, the Monarch. This is the most affordable pistol ammo I could find. You can pick this up at Academy. Alright, so the Monarch was actually doing a pretty good speed for 124 grain, an average of 1123. Okay, so I forgot to move the spotting scope to the next target, so I'll just have to post a picture of what the Monarch did right up here. Next up, we're going with the Remington. We're going up again in the grain weight to a 147 grain. This is showing a 990 feet per second. All right, so the Remington 147's average speed of 1,000 feet per second. I'm gonna run down here and reset the targets. I'll be right back. All right, the targets are reset. You guys have already seen the group, but I'm blown away. What a huge improvement the 147 grain made over all the rest. So I'm excited about the next two because they're both 147 grain. And the first up is gonna be the Federal American Eagle. Standard deviation is 7. That's looking real good. So let's finish it up with what I think should be the best. But that Remington's going to be hard to beat. All right, so last up for the 50-yard test is the Winchester Super Suppressed 147 grain subsonic. I believe that was the slowest yet at 939 feet per second. Standard deviation of 12.6. I'm gonna run down, get the targets. I'll look through them. I'll pick out, I think I'm gonna pick out the best 3, maybe 4, but at least 3. All right, so as I predicted, the heavies did do the best. So we moved the targets out to 100 yards, and we're gonna put the 3 147 grain bullets up against each other. So first up is gonna be the Remington. Alright, so next up at 100 yards is the Winchester Super Suppressed 147 grain. And last up at 100 yards, we have the Federal American Eagle 147 grains. All right, so that's it. You guys have probably already seen the groups. When I was moving the spotting scope, I seen that they are low on the target, but we can adjust for the drop later. When we find the ammo we want, we'll re-zero it at 100 yards. I'm gonna gather up all my gear and I'll do the full review back at the reloading bench. All right, so now that we got all the shooting done and all the data collected, let's sit down and actually walk through what we found. Because there's a lot going on here, and honestly some of it surprised me, this wasn't just about which ammo shot the smallest group. We were trying to see which ammunition would actually perform when we stretched it out to 100 yards. So we started at 50 yards. At 50 yards we ran everything from the 150 grain all the way to the 147 grain. We started with 115 grain. The Winchester 115 was pretty fast, but the group spread pretty wide. Next was the CCI Blazer 115 grain. The CCI Blazer tightened things up a bit, definitely more consistent. But the Federal 115, that one just didn't perform. That was the least stable out of all the groups. And this is something I think a lot of people overlook. The 115s were all pretty fast, but that doesn't mean they're going to be accurate at distance. Now we stepped into the 124 grains. First up for the 124 grains, the CCI Blazer. The CCI Blazer 124 had a pretty decent group. And the Monarch 124s were pretty similar. The 124 grain bullets didn't shoot terrible, but nothing stood out either. If all you're doing is shooting close range, they're fine, but they're not giving you any advantages once you push them out to distance. Now once we get into the 147 grain, on the other hand, the Remington 147 grain shot a tight group, but it had that one flyer. And the Federal 147 was almost the same story, tight group with the flyer. I'm not sure if this works like a 22 bullet, where when you season the barrel with a certain type of bullet, it's going to continue shooting good with that bullet until you switch and load. I don't know if switching the loads caused the flyers or not. Because if you did notice, I believe it was the first shot on both of these that were low. And it could have just been me with the trigger pull, but it seemed like it was an awfully distinct flyer on these bullets to not be something to do with switching rounds or a bad trigger pull. And this is where we got to think as a shooter. Do we want to judge the ammo on the full group, or do we recognize when something had potential but that one round just threw it off? Because if you just take that one round out, the Federal 147 put up an impressive 3.9 inch group at 50 yards. And the Remington was even better at 2.2 inch group at 50 yards. That's a huge difference when you take out the flyer. And that tells us that the accuracy is there. And then the Winchester 147 Subsonics. Not as tight of a group, but they were very consistent. Now when you start looking at the velocity data on top of all this, you start to see a pattern. The lighter rounds were fast, but definitely had more spread. And the heavy stuff was slow, but very stable. And when you're talking about a 100-yard pistol shot, the stability matters way more than the speed. And based on that, we took the best performing, the 147 grain bullets, and took them out to 100 yards. Now, before we get into this, you'll notice all the groups are low. That's because we didn't re-zero for the 140 grain bullets being slower. That wasn't intentional, but we can always adjust our zero later. I wasn't worried about the point of impact. I just wanted to see what the groups would look like. What matters here in this testing was group size and consistency. And first up at 100 yards was the Remington 147 grain. At 100 yards, it just didn't hold together. And that right there is why we didn't stop testing at 50 yards. Next was the Federal American Eagle 147 grain. And this is where things started to come together. This stuff held a solid group at 100 yards. And it was definitely the most reliable overall. And then the Winchester 147 Subsonics. Not the tightest group of the three, but again, it was a very consistent load at 100 yards. So here's what all this data really tells me. Tight groups at 50 yards don't always carry to 100. And consistency definitely matters more than just one tight group. And as you can see, the 147s gave me better results across the board. So I had to make a decision based on all of this. If we're just shooting 50 yards, we got options. But what I'm doing, especially thinking about the Mammoth Sniper Challenge, I'm going with the 147s. And honestly, this testing gave me something more than just one answer. It gave me 3 solid options. The Remington 147 grain, the Federal 147 grain, and the Winchester 147 grain. These are all loads I'd feel comfortable taking to the Mammoth Sniper Challenge. And if you've been there, you already know. You're tired, you're under pressure, and you're shooting from awkward positions, and even targets out to 100 yards. So having the ammo I can actually trust and shoot groups out to 100 yards, comparing this to the ammo I took last year, this will give me a whole lot more confidence going into the 100 yard pistol stage. This isn't about shooting a tight group at 100 yards. This is about knowing what your equipment can actually do. If you've done testing like this, drop it in the comments, because I would like to see what you're running. Make sure you follow along. Go ahead and hit the subscribe and ring that bell. There's more videos and content coming your way.